everybody, welcome to Houdini Hangout. My name's Peter, and it has been a few weeks. Hope everybody's doing well out there. So I've been out of town, getting some vacation time in. I had the wonderful fortune of getting to travel around the North and South Islands of New Zealand, and with my wife, doing a little road trip. It was really nice. It was great. By the end, I was starting to miss working on computers and working with Houdini and things like that because I am a workaholic. And so I have to do things like that to get myself out of the office from time to time. And so it was good for me, although parts of me hate it. Not doing 3D stuff or recording anything or making anything or doing anything. So it's definitely hard for me from like a personal standpoint, but it was amazing, super beautiful. Got to do a lot of really great stuff. And one of the things that was really nice was I got to actually go not only to the Weta workshop while I was down there, which is a paid tour that everyone should do if they're ever in Wellington, New Zealand. It was amazing. You got to see all of the, behind the scenes of making props and things like that for Lord of the Rings. It was really, really cool. But I was also fortunate enough to get a nice behind the scenes tour of the actual Weta effects, offices and things like that, which was really great. Got to go there as a part of the side effects crew, team, whatever, which was really nice. And I really appreciated that. So, it was great. It was great to get to see that and see some of the folks that are working there, even though they just wrapped up all their crazy hard work on Avatar. So a lot of people were taking a much needed break. So it was kind of quiet around there, but that was nice because then I wasn't bothering anyone. But I did get to meet a gentleman who helps with QLib. I can't think of his name right now because we met him quickly. I'll have to look that up. I should have thought of that before starting this, but got to meet one of the QLib developers. I don't know if he's the only one or if he's one of a few, but he's one of the guys that does QLib, which is an amazing, amazing package. So if you don't use QLib for Houdini, you should go out there and get it. It's great. That was really cool to get to meet him as well. So it was a great trip and really nice to be able to spend a lot of quality time with my wife, which was really, really great. And she put up with my silliness and weirdness, and also she trusted me to drive on the other side of the road for the first time. So that was pretty fun as well. I like weird driving challenges like that. I used to drive around the US a lot when I was younger, in a crazy band a long time ago. But that was a different lifetime. And so I really enjoyed driving. And so it was really cool to get to drive on the other side for the first time. So that worked out well. And I'm still having trouble readjusting back to I guess it was driving on the left side of the road. We drive on the right side here. I'm getting that confused now. So driving on the left side of the road and now switching back to the right side, my brain is like jumbled with it. I keep hitting the wrong lever for the turn signal and stuff like that. So it's pretty funny now. Hopefully I don't ever hurt anybody while I'm driving, but I've been doing pretty good. So, fingers crossed. But anyways, enough about me and my vacation. We should talk some Houdini stuff. So if you hadn't seen, there are a couple of not tutorials, but kind of courses that got put up on the Side Effects website pretty recently. I think it was while I was gone, actually. And here, let me pull them up and I will show them to you just so you know kind of what they are, where you can find them. But right here, let's see. So we're on the Side Effects website here, and if we go down and you go to the tutorials section, I guess they're tutorials, but anyways, these are two in-depth courses that I'd actually created for our private kind of instructor, you know, learning database kind of thing, content system that's kind of for instructors at universities and things like that, but also for some people in studios. And from time to time, those get pulled out and put onto the wider, company, pages and stuff like that. So here you can see this one is a basics course on USD and an authoring course, which basically goes into the more nitty gritty of working with the code of USD actually and getting in there and doing stuff. We talked about some stuff with USD in the past couple streams. And so a lot of that's actually now covered in these. These are a lot more polished, kind of clean courses that you can go take a look at. But they're, they'll take a little bit to get through. Like this USD one here is, 1 hour and 18 minutes. They're all kind of chopped up into little bite-sized chunks. This one is quite a bit smaller chunks. You can see here, some of these are relatively short. We do that for instructors and professors and things like that because they might have only a few minutes in between classes to be able to go and make sense of that. These are a bit longer just because the information is a little bit more dense. But feel free to take a look at these. Let me know what you think. Hopefully all the content is informative. I've had some good feedback on it so far. But, in lieu of continuing too far into our discussion of USD and stuff like that, here on the live stream, I just figured, hey, we have these, I have these two courses that can be used to kind of fill in the gaps that we may have missed on the stream here. So what I'll do is I'll throw these into the chat. They will be there for you to take a look at, and you can also follow along with them and kind of keep track of your learning progress on the website as we go. And as always, if you'd like to be a part of the Discord server or just have a link to the other options for finding this stream, whether it be YouTube or Twitch, I stream on both. So if one suits you better than the other and you found it in one place, feel free to jump over and use our website to do that. And also there's a Discord invite on there as well, so you can join however you'd like to. So there's a couple different options there. I've actually seen recently that there might be some Discord stuff that I could actually stream right there. So that's kind of interesting. I'm going to look into that a little bit more. But as I said, I've been traveling around the Southern Hemisphere, well, one little tiny part of the Southern Hemisphere. So been a little busy. I haven't had a ton of time to check all that stuff out. But anyways, so in lieu of continuing too far into our USD conversation, which we had kind of started, there's two pieces of that are online through this channel. But in lieu of that, let's kind of switch it up a little bit. I also won't be, I don't have like a ton of time to be streaming like more successive, like kind of iterations of something. I'm going to be streaming this week, next week, and then take a week off for GDC, the Game Development Conference, which I'll be at. So I'll be off in San Francisco for that. So if you also want to get the schedule for what I have planned coming up, I have dates scheduled pretty far out. I usually take them out if I'm not going to be there. And I'll try to put in the information that I'm going to be streaming about. But in this case, I thought we were going to maybe do more USD. So we're kind of changing it up a little bit at the last minute, since all that stuff got scheduled or got posted while I was away on vacation. So, so if you want to find the schedule, you can also go to the HoudiniHangout.com site, and there is a calendar on there as well that updates as my schedule changes or does whatever. So tonight, I thought we'd maybe do a little bit more of a viewer's choice / Q&A type setup where we could just kind of discuss things live and kind of go from there. I don't think many people have logged in tonight. Not a super big surprise considering I've been away for a few weeks, and all of our collective attention spans are quite short, but that's okay. So I don't know how much, audience interaction there will be, but I already got a couple comments on the Discord server about things that would be interesting to see. So that's good. The one thing I do want to say is that if you are watching live and you want to, join the chat and ask some questions and things like that, please do. There's no stupid questions here. There's always a chance that I'm doing something wrong and you might be correcting me. That's great. I really welcome that. I don't know everything about Houdini, and there's certainly tons of people out there that know way, way more about a whole bunch of different topics within the software. So, I don't want to make anyone think that, oh, he knows what he's talking about. I'm not going to try to interrupt him and say, well, why are you doing it this way? Please do. I would love to hear any corrections or, comments that you guys might have as we're going through whatever on this stream. That's always an open invitation. So please feel free to do that. And so that, sure. So looks like Kevin does have a question. I have a question that I'm not sure how to ask. Once you've built a shortest path setup, how do you go about animating the individual tendrils? Cool. Okay, Kevin, that's an interesting question. So what it sounds like you're saying is that you have a mesh that has, that you're trying to get the shortest path between points, right? And you're wondering how to maybe animate those individual curves that you have, right? On each of the pieces. I think that's what you're asking for. So yeah, we could certainly talk about that a little bit. I think it's an interesting question. And there's certainly a couple different ways that you could go. Yep. Yeah. There's certainly a couple different ways that you could go about doing that. So first of all, you could definitely use the carve SOP. If you haven't used that before, that's something that, you could animate those individual segments with that. Now, I don't think you have the fine control on that one, which you may have run into. Let me just make a couple curves here and we can kind of talk about how to do that. So let's just do this. We'll drop down a curve. Geo. And I don't know if you've worked with the carve SOP before, but maybe you have, maybe you haven't. All right, let's do this. We'll initialize it. Let's go into the, oh geez. Am I going to remember my, oh geez, I didn't know that was even the shortcut for that. Oh, it didn't like that at all, did it? No. Didn't like that. Hit the wrong one. I was thinking I was going to be all cool and use a shortcut. Okay, so you have used that one. Great. Well, let's maybe look at some of the other ones. We'll look at that first just to show what that does and why that could be, maybe not the best way of doing that. That's right. I could just do. That's weird. Okay, let's just make some curves here, and then we'll go from there. Sorry, brain's a little rusty here. All right, let's go. We'll just make some curves and just kind of go for it. We'll do them in just this view like this. These should be created like orthogonal to the x-axis. Interesting. Yep. Okay. I see. It's grabbing just the closest axis. That must be a new thing because I don't remember doing that before, but it's okay. We'll just make a few different curves here. Call it good. Cool. That's a nice, I like that updated behavior. I feel like that's a newer behavior. Anyways. All right. So we've got a couple curves here. And what you can do is use a carve SOP here, right? And so a carve SOP will treat each of these, as individual curves, right? So we can have it animate either from the first, the start point or the end point here. So we can carve them like that. And so this is kind of one way to go about that, right? So there isn't, I don't think, let me just pull up the help card for this here, because I don't think there's a way that you can use a, what do you call it? A attribute in the in this parameter here. I don't think so. Let me just double check. Yes, I don't think so. Nope. This would be the only way that you could do that. Hey, go away. Too big. So this one is just obviously a parameter that you could animate, right? So this is one way that you can go about doing this, right? Hey, Tezzy, welcome to the stream. Thanks for joining us. So let's get rid of that. Let's do another. I don't know if there's another thing here. Now, this is interesting. Oh, thank you. Sorry. My bad. Sorry about that. So I've made a couple curves here. Thank you for helping me out there. Obviously I'm a little rusty here. My brain is still a little bit in vacation mode. Anyways, so here, let's, okay. So what I was doing that no one could see was this. I made a bunch of splines here. They're all in the X, Y, and Z, planes here. So that was the thing that I was saying. Oh, that's interesting. I didn't realize that they could all work like that on each kind of like work plane here. So I didn't realize that the curve tool worked quite like that. So that's kind of neat. I think that might be a newer thing that it picks one of those, or maybe I just never noticed it before. Anyways, what I was messing around with was this carve stop. Basically, all this does is you can start it from the beginning here, or from the end like that, and they all cut independently, right? So that is kind of just an overall thing. If you want to just have all of them cut at the same, position along the curve, based on kind of a 0 to 1 parameter across the entire length of the curve, that's the way that you would do it. However, this isn't going to be super helpful in a lot of cases. Let's take a look at this here, because this is kind of interesting. I'm actually interested in the way that this, so there's a per prim carve that is in AElib. So let's came from Hi, Liam. Nice to have you as well. Yeah, Liam was in the Discord server and basically said, "Do Freebird." He was like, "Do the sand prompt for Mardini." He's kind of like he's heckling me from the back of the room. I like that. Yeah, maybe we'll get to that at the very end if we don't have any more questions or things like this to kind of play around with, things that people might, be interested in like this. But anyways, I'm just curious what this is, because this is a per primitive carve. Looks like this is going to be more or less the same. Now, the question is, interesting. This does not look like it's. Let me just crack this open and see what is going on here. Right. So obviously there's a lot of stuff going on here, different wrangles and things like that. So let's what it might, problem here might be that we have need to resample this. So because this is a Bezier curve, it might not be liking that. So let's just make this into true polygons. We'll resample it. Check out the points here. Great. Good. Let's see what happens here. Yep, there we go. And then we could shift it there. Yeah, that's good. Just see if there's a... Yeah, that's pretty cool too. Got a little shift in there. So this is from AElib. This is a whole, setup that they created and stuff like that. So this is a little bit different than the way that it would work normally. So let's see here if this has any. Oops, let me just undo this shift. See what happens here. Yeah, I don't know exactly how this works. I'm just kind of checking this out. But what I would do, the way that I would go about doing this is I would give, I would do something like this, like a resample, grab a curve U off of this so that we know exactly what our, spaces are for each of these, right? So each of these now has a 0 to 1 attribute on them, right? I love the stream persona. I don't know what that means, but cool. Glad you're enjoying it. I'm this is just me, man. I don't have a persona, but cool. Glad you're here. Anyways, so in the 0 to 1, we are, we can actually use that then to delete things, right? So what we could do very, very simply is do something like, oops, sorry. Could do a wrangle. So we'll just do like a point wrangle, something like this. This is going to be the easiest way to kind of go about doing this. And if you have it set up on a fine enough level, this will probably be good for a lot of examples, because what this is going to do is you can just have it delete based on a certain attribute, right? So we've resampled this. We have a bunch of points now. We have our 0 to 1 curve U space. So now what we can do is say, we can say if, well, first of all, let's make a threshold, right? So we'll say float threshold equals ch threshold like this. I'll make this, oops, a little bigger so everybody can see it just fine here. So we have a threshold channel that we're making. We'll do this to create, our parameters that don't exist yet. And what we'll do is we'll say if, and we'll do an if statement that says if at curve U, I guess we'll say is greater than thresh, right? So if it's larger than this threshold, then we will do this. We will say remove point. Yep. Typing's going great. And what we'll say is just the geo handle is going to be 0. It's current geometry. And we'll say at ptnum, because that's the current point number. And we'll say that. Great. So right now the threshold is at 0. And as we up this threshold, it's going to, delete these curves, right? So that's all well and good, right? That's working just fine. Now, what if instead we wanted to take each, instead of having each curve U alone, we could also say, let's grab the curve number, right? So we now have curve U and curve number, right? So what we can do there is say, we'll add these two together, right? Because then that'll give us an offset to this, right? Because if we can, let's see here, if we can take we'll make a little new thing here. We'll say, in comes Matt from the top ropes. The other way to do that doesn't require super high resampling or too much effects is store rest map. Oh, that's right. That's right. I remember that. Oh, man. Yes. That's right. So that is a way better way of doing it. So yep. So the only thing with that, Matt, is that that's all going to clip based on the same. So what Matt is saying basically is to store the the rest position of these points. So I'll show you how that's going to do. So this is working, right? But let's do what Matt's saying here. So let's just do a rest position. So you don't have to even do that. I guess we'll just do some really low resampling here. We don't have to do it quite like this. We'll do it like whatever, maybe at like 0.5, something like that. So these are pretty reasonable. Then we do the rest position. And then what he was saying is to do this, a point wrangle with, so what we're going to do is do at p.y is equal to, and then we'll do at curve u like this. So what that should do is it will put them all into the same, y space or whatever. So they're all moving up in y at the same time. So what we can do then is use a clip sop. And you could animate that, right? So we could do this the other way. So we'll say below the plane, have it go like this, right? So it's just clipping it. And then what we can do is we can take this rest and we should be able to read it back. I think if you do extract rest, that will work. And then, yep. So basically what we're doing here is setting, we're working along the curve U. And so then what we could do, okay, right. So now what we could do instead is add curve U plus curve, we'll do plus at curve num because we have that as well. You could use whatever attribute, but now this is going to set that up multiple, each of these is going to be offset, right? And we could scale the amount of offset, right? So what we could do here is, so now what we're doing is clipping based on this y-axis, right? Because these are all kind of placed up, kind of ascending in this y-axis now. So as we clip them here, haha, beat me to it. Yep. Well, you got me halfway there, Matt. I've seen you do that before and I totally forgot about it. And that is a great example. So here what we're doing is just super simple, right? We have curve number, curve U. So we're using that to offset each of these curves into their own space. So now they're going to be going into the 0 to 1. So the 1 to 2, then 2 to 3. And so as we move this clip up and down, right, it's going to cut each of those. So this is going to start with none of them cut, go up like that. Then this rest is going to put them back into the position that they were in originally. So basically we're storing a rest position, moving them into that position where we're cutting them, and then replacing that, we're extracting that rest position and putting them back where they were before. And Matt has probably a much better example on his website of this on CG Wiki, but yeah, so what we're doing here is as we move this up, each of those are going to animate on, right? And so you can kind of choose which, you could set the offset in a number of different ways, obviously. This isn't the only way you'd be able to do that. And so we can kind of move this offset back and forth and get it to, kind of move around and do, distance. That's right, not the origin. You can use distance to do that. So then there you go. So that will animate each of those separately, right? Put them back into their position when they're, good and ready, when you've cut them. And what you could also do here is you could take this curve number, and instead of doing this, we could just say times ch, and we could call this just like scale, something like that. Another parentheses in there. And so what this should be able to do is we should be able to scale these values, back and forth, right? So now if we let's just kind of look at these here. Front. So if we're looking at this now, right, they're all scaled out by 1 here, but if we bring them down, they're going to start to overlap a little bit. So we should be able to overlap each of them by slightly less, and have them kind of all happen now, if we had it at 0, they're all going to happen simultaneously. And as we slowly scale this up, they're going to happen at slightly different times because their offsets are now scaled. So let's just take a look at what that looks like as well. Go back to perspective here, and I'm just going to animate this. We'll set this to 0. Hello, 0. I think I have my number lock off. That's right. Okay, so there it's set to 0. I'm just going to animate it like that, and whatever. Do it here. Do it to 3, because currently that's how far I would go. Just hit play, and that will animate around like so. Right? And so what we could also do then is really change this offset, and you'll get 1, 2, 3 like that, or you could bring it down like this, and it'll have a little bit of overlap there as well. So you can have them all go simultaneously like that, or you could, adjust them however. And these are happening. This animation has a Bezier on it by default. So what we could do is we could just go in here and change this real quick to a linear, just so that it's a little smoother across the whole thing. So there we go. Like that. And then as we change this scale here, it's going to adjust how much overlap there is in them. So that's one way you could do it, Kevin. Hopefully that makes sense. I don't know. Hopefully I didn't lose you anywhere there. I know. And really the thing that what Matt's saying makes way more sense here. We don't even, I think, have to have this resample if I'm not mistaken. No, we do probably need some resampling in there to make it, or we need to make it into a what do you call it? An actual polygon. I don't think it'll cut a Bezier, unless Matt knows something again that I don't, which is very likely. But yeah, so this will cut each of those individually. And by just using a little bit of Vex here, we can set it this way. And really, this is a super flexible way to be able to do that. You don't have to use the resample node either. You could use something like a connectivity node to get this curve number, right? Because the connectivity of your polygons will give you different numbers that you can add into that, and you can scale those similarly. So right, okay. Let me just try to think if there's an easy way to not. Yeah. Right. So, I mean, you could turn this way up and it's still going to cut it. You can still see how this is cutting, right? So it's still cutting. It's just that they're sharper lines, basically. So yeah, you don't really need to resample very much. It'll still, yeah, I think it's a really clean setup. Yeah, okay. So yeah, so you turn off the maximum segment light. Minimum? I think you meant maximum, but that's okay. Yeah, that'll still turn it into a polygon, line or whatever. There's no way, I don't think, to do that with just a straight Bezier, is I guess all I'm saying, which makes sense because how could you get a curve view on a Bezier? I don't think that would actually work. But yeah, it's a really clean setup. I remember Matt showed this somewhere online, and it's really, really good. So yeah, it's I saw it somewhere that he posted it, and I was like, yeah, this is a really smart way of doing it. So there you go. Super, super easy way of cutting a bunch of different curves. And those are actually cutting. I'm just on this one. It's showing the ghosted image of that. And you can have as many curves in this as you'd like. The only thing that you would have to really change is that clip parameter there. I'm just going to delete this, which is kind of the dirty way of doing it. You just need to change where this distance goes to and make sure that it goes up to whatever maximum value you have set in here. In fact, we're going too far in this case. I could bring that down a little bit. But anyways, yeah, so there you go. Kevin, glad that could be of some help to you. in the middle of that, Carlos was asking something about Solaris replacing the object level. No, personally, I don't see that happening. He was asking if I think the object level will be replaced by Solaris, and no, I don't think that's gonna happen. I don't see that happening unless USD has some fundamental rewrite at some point. That's not gonna happen in the near future. The one real reason for that is that USD doesn't really give you a good way to, and Solaris doesn't, I should say, give you a good way to edit any point attributes or anything like that. And it's just inherently not really made to be getting in and doing the edits that you can do really quickly in standard, object level geometry in Houdini. There's a lot of stuff that Houdini is really, really good at, like Vex and, working with tons of points and primitives and things like that really quickly, that USD just isn't really for that kind of a thing. USD is made for dealing with a large number, maybe you could say a large number of objects, whereas getting in and actually working with specific points and working with all sorts of different like large animated data sets is really, really tricky in Solaris because of the way that the USD has to get written. Animated USD is really tricky to work with, in fact. So there's a lot of reasons why Solaris won't replace the object level. And it will be kind of this look dev lighting, rendering space, but it's not going to really be able to do a lot of the things that you can do in with simulation. That things that you do with Vellum can't just naturally exist in USD, at least at the moment, and I don't really see that changing anytime soon, or maybe ever. It's really hard to say definitive statements like that in the tech industry, but I wouldn't worry about that if you're like, man, I really need to learn Solaris because it's going to be the future of Houdini. I mean, yeah, it's super powerful and it's really really helpful for look dev, lighting, layout, rendering, all that kind of stuff. But I don't see it being anything that gets that fundamentally replaces anything else in Houdini, other than maybe object level lighting, object level, anything that's kind of rendering related, I think is just going to continue to get phased out of the object level and really become less and less useful. In fact, at this point, I will just make everything in SOPs that I need to. And once I start lighting and doing all that kind of stuff, I move that over into Solaris, because there's no need for me to make lights in the object level anymore, in my opinion. Now, there's reasons, I'm sure, for many pipelines around the world that would need that. I'm just saying, as a freelancer, I just get my stuff and throw it into Solaris and kind of go from there. There's obviously problems and hurdles with USD and things like that have to be overcome from time to time, but I think the benefits outweigh the issues at this point. So that's my 2 cents. I can't speak definitively, but I wouldn't see that happening. So there you go. There's my answer. Cool. Kevin, you had another question. What is a Vex setup to find the first and last points on complex geometry? I'm not sure what you exactly mean by that, because you mean like 0.0 and like in this case 0.38? Is that what you mean? Like something like that? I mean, obviously you would have more points than that. Let me turn on this again and I'll just make a ton more points. So not a ton more, but some more. So in this case, my first point is 0 and my last point is 799. Is that, Kevin, is that kind of what you meant? I'm not sure if that is your question or if I'm misunderstanding that. I will give you a moment to respond. Well, so just to answer your question, if you're looking for the number of points, right? That is a built-in. Yeah, no problem, Carlos. So if you're looking for the number of points, that's actually built into attributes in in wrangles and things like that. One thing when we were doing the Joy of Vex series, if you are ever curious about those kind of built-in functions, you can go into the point VOP. There's some nice little shortcuts here that you can actually grab. So for example, all of this stuff here in blue, it's just basic. Blue means that these are integers. All of these tell you some really interesting things. Like, for example, num-pt is the number of points. So if we go over to I'm just going to grab another point wrangle here. Oops. And if we do this and just do, I don't know, we'll just do at a equals and then do at num-pt like this, that'll actually write out the number of points that there are. Now, in this case, well, first of all, I shouldn't have it as a float, so I'm going to say it's an integer, like so. And that is going to tell us the number of points we have. Now, if you need to get the point indices, you can just do -1 on that, and that'll give you 799. That just kind of sets it back into that kind of computer science world of starting at 0 instead of starting at 1, like people like to do. But num-pt will just tell you how many points there are, which there are 800 in this. So if you need to get the last point, you know that you can look up num-pt -1, and that will give you the last point. No matter what you're doing, at num-pt -1, you could have 2 million points and it'll give you the same thing. So in this case, if we did this and checked it, now it's 40,000. Oh, technically it's 40,544, which is right here. So that would be how I would go about finding those first and last points in a complex geometry if you're doing it in Vex. And that would be, you could also do that if you were looking to see, what number primitive you had. Like say you had a bunch of these curves here that you're resampling, and I believe, yep, there we go. Let me turn this down a little bit so we can see this better, like that. All right, so if you have a few different curves here, might be a little hard to see, but if you turn on your primitive numbers, you can see that this is 0, this one is 1, and this one's 2. So if you were doing something like this where you were trying to figure out how to offset something like this clip animation here where you're deleting stuff and moving, cutting things based on an offset that you're adding into that, you could also look up, something like the primitive number. If you have a bunch of connected, pieces of geometry that are helping to offset your attribute, you could look up that primitive number as well and use that, as a way to kind of fit an attribute to that as like a maximum output, basically. You could do that as well. So that's a possibility there. So so that's, just something to think about there. Hopefully that kind of answers your question, Kevin. I'm not 100% sure if that does, but if not, just let me know and we can certainly keep talking about it. But cool. Yeah, great. Well, let me just look at cool. Thanks. Get out of there. I don't know why my computer just did that. Sorry. Give me a moment here. I'm just going to turn that on so I don't get pinged with stuff while I'm streaming. So there was a couple suggestions on the Discord server. One of them was to do the sand prompt from Houdini, and I'm just going to touch on that real quick before Stairway to Heaven. I'm just going to touch on one thing real quick before I start just going off on a tangent of making some random sand thing. If you are interested, and I highly recommend it, there is a challenge called Mardini, which is happening right now. If you missed out on some of the beginning of it, it's okay. Still early in the month. You could probably catch up if you want to get the I think they call it Ironheart still. I didn't look actually. Ironheart, yep. So if you do all 31 challenges and submit a contact sheet to the Ironheart forum, you'll win the Ironheart. So if you do all of the prompts, enter it, great. Probably aren't going to get best collection because after 31 days, that's the person with the most points. And some people already have a lot of points, I'm sure. I haven't looked quite yet, but I did peek at this while I was on vacation, and yeah, some people have already won quite a few. So there's a lot of points out there that have been won. But anyways, just putting an entry in does give you a point though, which is really nice. So at very least you would get 31 points for entering all of them. But anyway, so this is a really cool thing to do. I did the whole thing 2 years ago. I did every day, and last year I did some of them, and this year I haven't done any yet because, well, first of all, I don't think I could win any of the prizes. I don't think that works. I think I'm excluded from the prizes, but yeah. So it's a really cool thing to do, and it, I think, helps push yourself. Even if you're just trying something for 31 days straight, it's going to really help you out quite a bit and get you, I don't know, it just really pushes you hard. And what it did for me actually was helped me get faster at getting through some of this stuff, honestly, that I even do on the stream, and encouraged me to start live streaming later that year. And here we are. So yeah, you never kind of know what's going to come of it. If you're going to maybe do a bunch of stuff and get a job from it, who knows? But it's a really great exercise. Highly recommend it. And that's what Liam keeps yelling at me about, to do Stairway to Heaven. I'm just going to take a look at what Kevin said here. So he said, I believe so. So the way you had 4 curves, and I wanted to get the first and last point on each of those curves. This gets more complex with more curves. Sorry, I'm a slow typer on an iPad. No problem, Kevin. So the way you have 4 curves, wanted to get the first and last points each of those curves. So yeah, the first and last point on each curve you could easily get by using this curve U, right? So you're going to get all of the first points if you select 0, curve U of 0. And if you select the curve U of 1, you're going to get all the last points. So that is the easiest way to select the start and ends, right? So what you could do there is just say, you can actually make groups this way. You can do group underscore start equals, sorry, my bad. So what I would do is say if curve U equals 1, we'll say group underscore end equals 1. We're basically just saying it's in that group. So now here we have our group end, right? So there you go. Group by range also has a built-in option. Perfect. So if we do group by range, I hadn't seen that. So points. I'm guessing it would be Oh, I was thinking it'd be -1. Sorry, I haven't used this before. Group arrangement selection for each individual curve. There we go. So that has it right there. And we could do... There we go. I see. Yep. Got it. So this is relative to the start and end. That will give you both the start and the end right there. Now what you could do is you could just do start like this. Say start. And then we could do another range here and say points relative to start end. This will be 1. And what? Oh, right. I don't think that that doesn't check on. Yeah, so this is a cool one. I actually didn't even know that. Thank you for that. Appreciate that. What am I doing here, though? I think I did that one wrong. I probably just missed something here. But yeah, you should be able to do this. You could do the start like that. End would be that. So it's pretty much the same as what I was doing, but is a much easier way of doing it. Yeah, so just make sure you do this effect disconnected geometry separately. And there you go. Perfect. That would give you the start and end of each individual piece that way. And you'd have those all in a group. So now you could see here, we would have, should have 3 in that one. Sorry. Now we'll have 3 in that one. There you go. Cool. That is a great node. I did not know it had that capability. Nice. Yeah, you're welcome, Kevin. Thank you to everybody else because I was going the difficult way and yeah, that's way easier. I often like to find the most difficult way. That's kind of my my MO. So I appreciate everybody else giving the easier ways because that's usually better. Cool. Well, if nobody has any other questions or thoughts or anything like that in the chat here, why don't we make a little something as we go here. It has been a while since I've done that. I've been kind of on a Vex kick and then USD and all this kind of stuff. So let's give that a shot. Liam, did you have any suggestions or thoughts on something that we should make since you've been heckling from the back? Anything with sand that we should do? Any ideas? I hadn't given it much thought before you suggested that, like 10 minutes or however long that I read it before a couple hours before the stream. I didn't really have any ideas, so I'm working on my own still. What any ideas? Anybody got any sand ideas for a little Mardini fun while we're all here hanging out? Any ideas? Any thoughts? Anybody? I mean, I could just do it like a sandbox or something, but I mean that's kind of that's Squab Sandcastle. Huh. Squab Sandcastle. What does that even mean? Sorry, I gotta take my jacket off. I'm dying here. I have to say, being in New Zealand for 2 weeks, it was really nice to be in warm weather coming from the northern hemisphere and very north in the northern hemisphere where it's very cold. Yeah, anyways, it's kind of like still trying to warm myself back up. Squab Sand Castle. Okay. Let's think about this. Yeah, let's do it. Let's do the old demo I did of a crowd guy being grumpy. I think I remember that. Oh, that's funny. Yeah. What is that one? That one is very, I'm going to look that one up just because it's a classic. Let's see here. Where is it? Where is it? I'm looking at your website here, Matt. Let's see. Must be in here somewhere. Oh, you know what? I wonder if it's not in vellum. I wonder if it's probably grains. Really? That's so funny. I like this one. That one's just amazing. Oh, it's on the DOPS page. I see. DOPS. Grains. Oh gosh. The number of times. Yeah, there it is. Yes, grain dancer. It really is ridiculous. My brain can't come up with weird stuff like that. I know I just can't. I can't think of weird stuff like that, but that's good stuff. I like that. No, I think I'm going to do this. I'm going to make a squab sand kit, some sort of sand thing out of a squab. Why not? Right? Why not use the old squab? Let's do it. All right, let's get rid of this. We'll do a geo. Grab a squab. Oh yeah, let's look at all those. All right, let's do a transform here so we can get them sitting on the ground a little bit better. What I'll do is actually do a match size. And we'll do minimum. That way all I have to do is just rotate him properly here. And he'll sit right on the ground. Cool. There he is, the squab. You know what? I'm kind of having an interesting thought here. What I'm actually, you know what? Maybe instead of doing it with grains, maybe what we'll do is do a soft body simulation and then have the grains like attached to that. So it looks like it's sand kind of, but it's not. It's a soft body thing. Cause like I'm thinking of like how the sand will fall over and it'll be like, it'll be kind of cool. But like it would actually be really fun if he's like this kind of squishy thing and then the sand is made of it and it's like this weird like sand squishy thing going on. That's what I'm going to do that. That's what I'm going to do. So it'll be kind of grains, but kind of sand. Nobody said it has to be a sand simulation. So let's do that. All right, let's do a vellum. Soft body. Cool. All right, let's just do a... So just using the... what was that? Sorry, let me look and see exactly what I did there because I did it quick. That's a vellum configure strut soft body. There's slight differences between the strut soft body and the tetrahedral soft body. I think the strut one is more like a filled balloon and the tetrahedral is a little bit more solid interior wise. I think it also takes a little longer to sim, if I'm not mistaken. But anyways, we'll just do the standard one and see how it looks and go from there. All right, let me give this a couple sub steps, maybe 3. Oh, I need ground plane too. Not gonna hit anything. Let's see. Solver ground position. There we go. In the simulation, I'm just gonna up this a little bit just to make sure we've got enough sim here. Yep, there we go. Yes. And then I believe if we want it to be more solid, we can just do the stiffness here. So I think if I did something like this, we should get a much stiffer result. Yep. So the way that this kind of works, and I'll just label it this way, is say, kind of like internal stiffness, and this vellum cloth will say, oh, sorry, internal strut stiffness, and then this is going to be external cloth stiffness. Or instead of cloth, you could say like surface stiffness, right? So what this will do is this is actually going to affect the outside as if it's like simulating like a piece of cloth, right? So if you gave that less ability to bend, it kind of, not that it wouldn't matter what the internal stiffness is, but those two would be kind of, I believe, fighting each other to some extent. So you could balance it differently based on that. So you could make the external shell a little bit stiffer, but then the internal volume collapse a bit more. So there's kind of two different things you can play with there, and that's why you have cloth and struts set up here. So as you up the stiffness here, you're going to, get a much more solid object that's not going to kind of bend all over the place. Now, the surface itself, kind of this external like cloth surface, will be able to bend and move and stuff like that. But the internals we're making more stiff. So here we go. We've got a little squab falling over here. Give this a few more. It's actually pretty stable. Not too bad. Always good to add a few sub-steps here. Give you a nice little extra stability there. They actually just increased this, I believe, that this is the global sub-steps of the DOP network, and these are the sub-steps on the Vellum solver. I believe this interface got updated just recently, just with this extra parameter. So if you're wondering, maybe you don't see that in your version, that could be why. But anyways, let's just turn this down to 120. I think we'll have to resim, which is, nope. Oh, good. Thank God. Just let that go to the end, cache it all up. Come to rest. Boom. Maybe we could hit him with some stuff, but first I'll make sure that this is working, and then we'll go from there. All right, so we have our squishy guy here. Actually, not. He's too stiff. I don't like that. Let's do this. Go down by a factor. Not fun enough when he's not smushing all over the place. Nope, still too stiff. All right. Just want to see him actually like bend and move a little bit. So I'm just going to play with this real quick. Get this going somewhere nice. Yeah, it's a little better. I'm just going to let this go all the way to the end. Just going to hit end and let it simulate all the way there. So what we're going to do then is we don't actually have to simulate the grains, right? Because we're simulating this mesh. And so what we could do is have it then deform the points of our, of this kind of grain setup that we're going to make, and use that to use the deforming geometry to then do like a point deform basically and have it match how this is moving here, right? So we have this kind of moving around, and we could then take, all right, so we're going to need to start from here, right? Because this is kind of our rest geometry. So we'll start from that point there, and we'll just say there's a grain source. That'll probably work just fine. Yep. So now we can make some grains here. So let's just lower this a little bit until we get a nice representation. That's way too many. All right, let's start with that. Seems fine for now. I want to do, yep, that's better. We'll do a jitter scale on that. Don't need to make any constraints. Let me just see here. Okay, cool. Maybe we'll do 0.5 on this. Nah, it's too regular. I don't want to have that much regularity in there. Yeah, we'll just leave it at 1. Should be good. All right, let's do that. And then let's grab point deform. So this is what we're going to deform. We're going to do the rest is this. The animated is that. So let's see. And there we go. That's working. That's cool. So let me see here. What we can do is, we could turn the radius down and then probably won't. Yeah, so what we can do here is we can actually like make sure that it's capturing based on a certain radius, right? So as we set this up or down, it's going to change the way that, where these are actually getting, what point they're getting kind of attached to, you could say. And so we can blend things a little bit better by capturing a few points and setting this maybe a little higher. Now it's also going to smooth it out a little bit, but it can just give us a little bit of a smoother shape here. And then we don't have to worry about all the, doing internal constraints and things like that. Now we've got a bunch of grain particles here that we could use and do whatever we want to with. And now, kind of regardless of how many grains we have, in fact, if we went really crazy, give it a second here, calculate it, there we go. So now we have 1.2 whatever million grains. And I have that highlighted, so that's not great. So now I have quite a few grains going here, and it's still capturing and deforming it pretty much just the way we'd want it to. So there we go. That's all working. Let's do something interesting with this. Like we could probably grab like the color from these maybe. Let's see. No, that's a shader. Can we grab the color from a shader? I don't know. I'm trying to think if we can grab a color from the shader. Well, we could use the image map, I guess. Sorry, let me just think about this. Yeah. I wonder if we could do... Let me try it. I don't know. Might work, might not. Just got to figure out what the shader thing is. There's a name for that. Texture. Yeah, there we go. Just going to go up here, say allow editing of contents. We should be able to do this. No problem. So, can I copy that? That's the question. So what I'm going to do is do an attribute from map, I think is what we want to do. Yep. And I am going to... Hello, not that one. Make sure everything else is removed here, like the shop material path. And I'm going to turn that off. Yeah, that looks like that's working. Got color. So basically what I did here is have it look up the definition of the SOP test geometry squab HTA, and then it's grabbing the squab diffuse JPEG, which is saved inside of there. Just a little thing to note here is that if you look at the properties of this and you look at extra files, there is a squab diffuse.jpg saved in here. So that is what it's actually looking at. So that's saved within the HTA. So I'm just pulling that same map and mapping the color based on that. So now what we should be able to do is just take that, and I don't think it would read it there, but if we do an attribute transfer, should be able to just transfer this onto that. Then if we do, we don't need primitives, we can just do CD, and now we have our squab colored particles, and I think we're just, oh no, maybe that's just because of its mouth, but let's just see here. Can kind of smooth it out a little bit if we want to, or leave it nice and rough. Distance threshold is fine, so it's not that. So it must just be that the mouth is kind of that weird white color. Yes, it is. So the inside of the white mouth is a whitish color. So that's why we're getting that. But there we go. There's our squab colored particles. Then we can, that still will animate. Since we're keeping that kind of as a rest position, it'll just kind of move like that. We don't need to resim because we just added the color to those and we're deforming it based on that. So there is our sand squab. Let's see. Let's do something maybe a little more interesting with it, though. Let's move this over. Maybe we'll add some velocity to this. Do something a little more interesting with it. So let's add a velocity here. Maybe we'll have it go... Nope, we'll do 1 in the Z, 0.5 in the Y. See if that does anything interesting for us here. No, not even close. Way too little. All right, let's do 3, maybe 2. Still not enough. We'll do 4 and 6, maybe something like that. The other thing, yeah, we don't have. I'd love to do some angular velocity, but that's okay. We can just leave that for right now. Throw them through the air. Let them do something interesting here. Let's take a look at the point deformation here. It should work just the same. Cool, cool, cool. I don't know. I'm running out of ideas, guys. What else? What else should we do with this? I don't know. I feel like now I don't know. I feel like we could maybe do something more with it. What other ideas do we have here? Our grain squab. Oh, that's interesting. Why is that? Oh, is this? No, it's point attribute. Yeah, I guess we do want it to have like one sample like that, so it's not completely blocky. Like that. There we go. Cool. Okay, so maybe from there, make it chew water out of its mouth. Oh my gosh, make it chew water out of its mouth. It's made of sand. Jeez. Make it shoot water out of its mouth. That's interesting. The sand squab shooting water out of its mouth. Hit it with some electricity and turns to glass. Okay. All right, we got some interesting ideas here. Give me a second here. I'm just going to give it a little higher resolution so that we've got our sand squab going on here. Ooh, it's slow now. Didn't like that. Did not like that. Hit it with some electricity and it turns to glass. Well, I don't really plan on rendering this, so... Okay, I have an idea. What if now I have it fall apart, like it's all solid right now here, then I have it turn into like actual sand thing where it falls to pieces then. So like right now it all looks like it's like a solid chunk of something, and then it kind of falls apart or whatever, does something like that. I know that's maybe not the most exciting, but maybe we'll try that. Thank you for your ideas though. I do appreciate it. Okay, so what I'm going to do is this. And then let me just do something. Trying to think. Oh, is that in here? Can I actually add a sprite on this? No, I can't. Oh, you know what? This actually might be better because I can probably add a sprite into that. Let me try this. Yeah, this is actually better. Should have used this from the start. All right, what did we do here? 0125. Let's just try 015. Jitter scale. What's it matter to me about? There we go. That's now visualizing a little better, like some sort of sandy thing going on here. Plunk. All right, cool. Now we actually have some spheres. Gonna get rid of that. So the vellum constraints grain does actually have a display of spheres. You could also do a sprite material. Either or, whatever floats your boat. You could also add a sprite into this, but just making all right, so let's do this. Then what we could do is have so what I'm going to do is transition these points from just being, animated whatever, into actually being a part of the a vellum simulation. And the interesting thing here is that I could actually do this. Let me think about this. This already has all of the properties it needs to be a grain simulation. I'm just going to check to make sure I'm not missing something here, because I don't think any of these other outputs actually even does anything. Nope, that doesn't have anything on it. That doesn't have anything on it. Just double check. Nope. Yeah, I think that's it. So it's all I need from this one port here. Oh, is that all I needed to add in here was GL sphere points? Might have been all I needed to add a detail attribute to that in order to make it visualize. So that's interesting. Wonder if I could have just done that. Probably could have. Anyways, let me see here. Add a vellum. Constraints here. Just see if Okay. Seems like that worked. All right, so I've got glue to animation there. Interesting. What's going on? Let me just turn this down a little bit just so we don't have so many points here. And I think what I could do is actually animate that attribute off. I'll just do like 0.3 again, something low. All right. Hopefully this will read properly. Might not, but give it a shot. Yes, 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 yes. Okay, so the question is, how close did this match up? Pretty much perfectly. That's great. And I think what I could do here is animate this glue to animation attribute. Let me just see if curious if I animate it before, if it'll work or not. Let me just see here. I'm just going to do a point wrangle. Can write it easily enough. We'll say at glue to animation equals CHI. We'll say active. Just call it that. So we'll just animate this at some point here. So maybe here at 40. No, too early. Let's do 24. So we'll say it's active there. 25, 0. This will be globally animating. So let's see here. No. Does not seem that worked. So let me just double check here. Yep, that's not reading it. Okay, cool. Just wanted to check. So what I could do here instead is basically do the same thing. Get this out of here. And I could... Yep, I could do a... Just do a pop wrangle. This should work, hopefully. And so if I do this, and then say, turn this off for a second, we'll just say active equals 1 there, 0 there. Cool. All right, so we'll turn this back on. See what happens. Hopefully that'll all fall apart. Oh, dang. No, it just stopped. Okay, so we need a different attribute here. Let me just think. Is grain is fine. Glue to animation is probably not what we want. We'll maybe say stopped. All right, let's check that out. See if this still works. I'm just going to turn this off. Okay, that's working. I think stopped was the attribute here, so let's try that. Instead of glue to animation, we'll do stopped. Give that a shot. What I'm going to do is stopped equals active. So I'm just making an integer so I can set a couple things here at the same time. I think this was glue to animation equals active. Let's try that. Oh. Sorry, that actually wasn't even enabled. So let's see if this worked. Maybe it did work. Well, it did something. I don't know what it did. It's weird. That's horrifying. Oh my gosh. Guess I can make weird stuff. Didn't put a ground position on, so that's part of the problem here. So let's see what happens. I don't know what is going on here. Wow. That is horrifying. What in the world is going on here? Is it... Let's see here. Maybe glue to animation. Try that again. Let's see. Nope. It's not that. Maybe it's both. Again, like I was saying. So let's just do this. That was weird. That was a weird one. I think the problem was that it was still glued to the animation, but it wasn't stopped anymore. So there's some weird, like, little fluctuations happening there. Okay, so we're going to make an integer attribute called active. Oops. So that we can write that to two things. We'll say equals active and I add stopped equals active. I can type. Hey, I don't know if this will work or not, but give it a shot. That looks more correct. Looks real crazy. All right, let's do this. Let's give it some sub steps. Go from there. Yeah. There we go. Okay. Probably don't need 5. Let's try 3. See if that's any better. Okay. Getting somewhere. Turn this down so it's actually playing back in real time. There we go. Yep. Okay, cool. All right, so let's do a little extra fun here. So, let's do this. Attribute adjust integer. So I'm going to do this here. All right. So I'm going to put this on the actual points, and I'm going to add a start frame. Or we'll say active frame, something like that. We'll do a line. We'll have the line start, I don't know, over here. If it go to over there, maybe it's too far. Cool. So we'll have it kind of go from back to front. The minimum value will be 24. Maximum value will be 48. We'll have it go over 1 second. What we can do is we can look at this. We can visualize this. So let's look here. We'll go to I, hit activation frame. There you go. There's each frame as it's going. Would like to add some randomness into this. So okay. So instead of setting this as a integer, because that actually won't be the best thing to do, we'll do adjust float. And that would probably be better. So let's do this because we can actually multiply things in there a little bit easier. So we'll do the same thing here. We'll do act frame like so. We'll say set initial line 24 to 48. Let's see here. I'm just going to get rid of that one. I think it didn't like that I had set it up as an integer. There we go. I can just reset this. No problem. Just going to go in here, make sure that this is set. We'll say auto. So there we can see the ramp that is, setting where this is. And then we'll just add a little maybe attribute noise in there to act frame, and we can just do 0 centered. Oh, it's not a vector, it's a float. And then you can see here that this is going to add some noise into it. Might not be super obvious, but let's add a little in there, maybe. Oops, let's do 2. And we need the element size to come down a little bit. I think that's looking pretty good. So what we can do now is wire this in. And what we can do here is use that to activate our stuff. So we have this here. And what we can say is, instead of having a global activation here, what we can do is can just say int active, and that'll set initial. And then, so that's an initialized attribute, right? That's just it's just active, right? It just created it. And so what we can do then is just say like if at frame is greater than at start act frame. That's right. It's like activation frame. At capital frame is just it's a default. It's kind of one of those pseudo attributes that exist in Vex, so it should be able to read that no problem and bring it in. I think even in this kind of DOPS context, it should be good. So what we can say here is int active. Actually, we'll set this by default to 1. And otherwise, we'll say active equals 0. Fingers crossed that that works. Not 100% sure it will, but I think that should work. Because what we're doing here is basically saying active is 1 normally, but if the frame number goes over the activation frame, we set it to 0, and that starts to enable all that crazy goodness. So we should start seeing some stuff around frame 24. Yep, there we go. Cool. That's a bit cleaner. Let's let it finish its deal. Just kind of hits the ground as one whole mass and then it goes bull. Cool. So what we could also do here is give it a little bit of noise, maybe. Maybe to give it a little extra velocity noise, maybe. Could be kind of cool. Let's just try this. Let's do... What we can do is not only say active is equal to 0. That's a little trickier. Hold on, let me think about that. Because we need to source... Basically what I was thinking is adding some velocity in there to make it pop up or whatever. But if we just do it based on it being past act frame, that's not going to work. So... Let me think about that. What we could possibly do here, let me just think about this. We could round up this act frame. Sorry, just thinking about how to possibly do this better. Because it's kind of stinks that it is. Okay, what I'll do is I will round that number up. Yep, that should work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to round this activation frame up. And if that's equal to the current frame, I'll add in just a hit of velocity and that'll pop it up or do something with it. So that should be relatively easy, maybe. Let's just do another one here. Is that if... Well, let me do this actually once and then I don't have to do it each time. I'll just say int activation. Maybe I'll just call it that. Activation. No. I'm so bad at naming these things sometimes. We'll just call it the same thing. Nope. Round frame. Like that. Rounded frame equals ceiling, which is a function, and it should... the smallest integer? Okay, I see. Yep. It's just weird it says smaller, but that makes sense. Okay. So we're going to do ceiling of at act frame. Like so. And that should, let me just see. Yep. And what I actually want to do here is say, make this call so that it's not angry. That should work. Yep. So now I have a round frame integer. And I can just say if frame is greater than or equal to round frame. And down here, I'm going to say if at frame is equal to double equal round frame. So this is only going to happen once, right? It's going to be active past the rounding frame, but when it's equal to it, we're just going to say at v dot y. So that's the y component of the velocity. We're going to say plus equals, and let's just add in like, I don't know, 10 for that one frame just to give it a little pop up. Might be way too much, but I'm just thinking of gravity. So maybe that should be a 10th of, or 24th of what it is, but let's give it a shot. See what happens. Should work the same. Hit the ground. What I can do is look at this object 2, the geometry, see if it's actually adding in any velocity. So let's just set this to be v, and so we can see if that has happened yet. Oh, I think I have to do v at v dot y. Maybe that's the problem. Let's try that again. Let's just do this, and we'll move this over here for a second, just to see if I'm just totally missing something. Might be. This should just force it to go up in the air. I don't even think it's going to add that in each time, so I think it's just going to be launching itself vertically. We'll see, just to make sure it's, yep, there it is. Okay, well, I know that's working. Oh, I know why. Because it's only when it's greater. So I'm going to set this back to act frame, because that should actually work. The problem was that it was actually activating it, before. That was the problem. There we go. All right, so let's just turn this down a little here. So we can do like 3. Yep. Still too much. Set it to 1. So what we could actually do here is have a attribute on there that's like a noise attribute. Now that I'm thinking of this, this could totally work as well. So this is just kind of across the board setting the velocity to 1, so it kind of pops up in the air, right, as it's like kind of falling to pieces, right? But that's not inherently very interesting because it's just going up, right? So instead of doing that, instead of just doing v at v dot y plus equals 1, what if we just set v at v equal to whatever value we had coming in, like some sort of like a rest, noise value. So we could do that. So let's do attribute adjust vector. Let's do this. And we can do v. Just see what this is going to look like here. I'm going to turn off this visualizer. Hey, Zach, how's it going, man? Glad to have you. All right, so let's do direction set initial. Let's do a noise here. Are we going to see that? It's weird that we're not seeing that. Maybe because of the sprite. Might be why. Yeah, it's probably because of that. Nope, it's because of that. Weird. There we go. Okay. Set always apparently is what we want to do here instead of set initial. It's really strange. Guess we could do add as well. Whatever. We'll do 0 centered. That'll just make sure that they're quite varied. Maybe we'll set these to 5. Turn the element size down a little bit so we get some more interesting little, I don't know, peaks and valleys and stuff. We don't need to animate it because it's just going to use this attribute. And what we're going to do is call this, I don't know, let's call it explode. Sure. Whatever. Explode is good. Now we won't be able to visualize it with that, but we could probably visualize it here if we do explode. Nope. Because that's, oh, there we go. So it's just going to visualize it as color. So that's not exactly what we want. We can go in here and edit it to be a marker and do a vector. Turn the length down a bit so we can see it better. And there we go. There's our random noise. Cool. So let's just come in here. We've got this little pop wrangle, and instead of saying this, let's just say v at v, and we can actually turn this. Nope, that's right. Active is right. Okay, so we're just going to do plus equals at v at explode. And that should stay the same the whole animation, right? So let's turn this off here. Leave that like so. And let's see what happens here. Should be the exact same animation, but now there should be a lot of variation to it. So let's see. Gonna kind of come apart from the back. Yep, there he goes. Let's see here. Yep. Now the other thing we might want to do is maybe instead of having it be so small, let's maybe do, actually should be maybe a little bigger. Maybe we leave it at 1 just to give it something. All right. Let's see where that gets us. Our sand squab. You know what? It actually might be more interesting too to give it a little bit longer. So let's do this to 72. So this is kind of the interesting thing about using these parameters to set up attributes in your simulation, right? You can just go and set one parameter. It's going to change the length of how long that kind of transition is going to happen. We should be able to see this now happen maybe a lot slower and maybe even more interestingly. Cool. Yeah. Yeah, there we go. So we got the squab hitting the ground and then getting sprayed apart by the sand, or by the forces on our sand. And I believe if we turn this noise down here as well, let's just take a look at that instead. Just see what happens if we make that scale a little bigger. Just for fun, see what happens here. So the one thing I was going to say is originally I was thinking about doing this as a, maybe like splitting, just having some of the particles go into the simulation and have the rest of them just not be in the simulation. But the problem there is they wouldn't actually collide with each other. So in this case, using these attributes to have it stop and animate like this is actually making it so that they will collide with each other while the ones are stationary. So it's kind of a nice little benefit of doing it this way. I'm going to turn this to like maybe 2, for example, and see how that works. Because this will be a lot more linear. Just kind of curious to see what some of these different parameters will do for us. Because this is just basically noising up that activation frame. So now it'll be quite a bit more linear and won't have so much variation to it. But the velocity will have variation, so we can kind of see what happens there. Yeah, so it's a much more linear effect now, which is kind of interesting. So there's that. And then if we kind of go the other way and have maybe the amplitude be 20, and then just see this again here. I think maybe 0.4, just a little smaller noise. Cool. All right, so now we should have some little chunks that are going to move around and do some different stuff. Some pieces are actually starting to come off a little early. Yeah, so I mean, you can get a million different variations with it, all sorts of different stuff. We could also take this explode force and turn it down a little bit. I don't know, 4, something like that. It's going to really change, again, the way that it looks. So you can play with attributes, parameters, things like this until you're blue in the face. But yeah, I think this will probably be where we end the stream tonight, so that maybe some of you can get back to your Mardini submissions, or start plotting for maybe your next submissions that are coming up in following days. But yeah, I really appreciate you guys joining me tonight. That's kind of cool. It's got kind of a fun look to it. Yeah, no problem. Thanks for joining, Robin. Yeah, so next week we'll have probably another standalone stream. Probably pick one of the topics from the topic suggestions. So if you're interested in something, specific, pop it in there. There's some suggestions already in there for topics. But after next week, I'll be away for 1 week at GDC. And then I think after that, we're going to start up another series, possibly, maybe some sort of like an intro to Vellum series, or even a series on mops, possibly, if that's something that you guys are interested in. I really would like to do a series on that and kind of talk through bunch of things there. So I think that's what the next one of the next topics will be on. Maybe some starting out with Vellum, maybe some mop stuff. We'll see kind of how I feel as I'm getting back into things here, coming off of vacation. But yeah, no problem, everybody. Thank you guys so much for joining. I always appreciate having you guys around, and hopefully you got some interesting stuff out of this. SOP flips. Interesting. Yes. SOP flips. I actually did a stream on that a while ago. If you look back through the channel, I did touch on that a little bit. And actually one of the side effects developers chimed in and gave a couple of tips as well. So if you go back and look at that, I gotta say it was after 19.5 came out, obviously, but so it was probably August, September, somewhere around there. Thanks, Carlos. I really appreciate it. Glad you could join us. So I think that's where we will end things for tonight. Yeah, you guys are awesome. Thank you always for joining along, and your comments and suggestions and things like that. I obviously really appreciate it. And so take a look back at that, Kevin. Hopefully you'll find something interesting there. You can always ask questions and things like that in the Discord server if you are running into issues or trouble with figuring out some specific thing in Houdini. I or someone else will be happy to probably chime in at some point and give you some pointers or feedback. I wasn't able to do that, like I said, the past couple of weeks, but I'll be back in there now, taking a look at stuff as you guys post them. And people like Matt, even I know that oh gosh, I forgot his name, Toadstorm, a guy who does mops, has even popped in there a couple times to help people out with stuff. So if you have questions or things that you're running into there, it's a small community, so hopefully I can give you a hand there, but other people will pop in from time to time and give some helpful feedback. So Liam has done that as well. I believe he's popped in there and given some good pointers and things like that. So so for everybody that joined, thank you again. And hopefully I will see you guys next week. Thanks so much. Bye, everybody.